Hey, how's it going, everyone? So I wanted to just say a couple things about this development with Gulch Chile. And if you are unfamiliar with that, it's basically someone trying to create a liberty-friendly community in Chile. And when it was created, it had a lot of interest and backing from some prominent people in Liberty Communications. For example, Jeff Berwick, among others like Wendy McElroy. And apparently, according to an article written by Mr. Berwick, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly on Galt Chile, and another editorial by Wendy called The Fate of Galt Chile. Uh, there's a lot of G's in there and accents to try to put in. Um, it appears that there's been some form of fraud or lies that have gone on behind the scenes. According to their side of the story, the guy who was running it wasn't forthcoming about the process and made promises about certain land development sales that were not initially secured. And I think this is a really good example, a very important example of how important it is to be careful in doing business, especially when you're associating it with something liberty-oriented. I think one of the worst things that can happen, especially in the liberty movement, and I say that not as like there's some specific liberty movement, just as the concept of people who are trying to promote liberty, is to have poor integrity and poor ethics in business dealings. I think honestly that's probably the worst thing you could ever do, is to wave the flag of, oh, I promote these values and really hurt other people, screw other people over. I think that's extremely important to have openness and honesty. And when it comes to things like this, if anybody's doing property deals with a sort, um, there are a lot of extra factors that have to be considered. As much as people want to be like, hey, what can we do, seasteading or creating our own little place where we can have true liberty. I mean, as much as people want to have that, still governments at the end of the day who are going to try to regulate or zone or keep people from being able to have that true freedom. It's very hard. And I think that probably, arguably, the best group right now looking to do that, is the Seasteading Institute. They have the most money, for sure, and they have the most people working on their legal team to try to see, hey, how do we get out of the government waters and the international waters and see what we can pull off. But I mean, really, anything that is going to be real estate, that is a dangerous venture as far as trying to create a community. And I think that if anything like this were to ever be tried again, everybody should take cues and realize that this is serious. This has a much bigger impact than just trying to hustle a business deal. This can have wakes for people's uh, understandings and confidence in the integrity of those who are espousing these beliefs. And the thing is that at an abstract level, just to be clear with everybody here, there's tons of corruption, across humanity, no matter what ideology there is. This isn't something that's like, oh, that's anarcho-capitalism on display. Here comes, all the frauds and the thieves. Obviously not. Obviously, the biggest frauds and thieves are the ones who are using, the voting box. But I think that it's important that those who do claim to love liberty to have a higher ethical standard. They shouldn't, cater to the lowest common denominator. They shouldn't claim to be average to the human experience. I think that it's important to model those values of non-aggression, of not initiating violence, and of other certain ethical aspects in terms of business dealings and how you can be honest and open and really give people the confidence that what you're doing is good and timely. And that's something, I've had to deal with on a number of occasions with, even doing the comic book thing. I deal with people's questions, whether stuff got shipped or not, and it's a big deal to me if somebody didn't get something. And that's been dealt with. I had one person who said, oh, I didn't get shipped something. I'm like, wait, what is it? What is your name? And they came back like, oh, whoops, actually I didn't order it. I'm like, And I had one person who I had to send them a couple things twice, and it still didn't go through. I don't know why. I mean, I had tracking and everything. but something happens. But you got to make that clear. You got to be a good communicator. You have to be a responsible communicator, and you have to be someone who, when there are troubles ahead, you have to be able to let other people know and bring in a brain trust and other people's resources to make sure that those problems are fixed immediately. That way, people aren't being defrauded. They're not feeling like they've been lied to. And according to the personality presented in the articles I've read, of course, I don't know this person, so I can't truly comment on this as someone who's knowledgeable. I'm just giving an analysis of what I've read, which could be totally wrong because I don't know the person. Now, based on what I've read about the situation from a couple of articles, people who've been involved in this project, it appears that whoever was running it let their pride and ego get in the way, and potentially, and I've seen this before working for other businesses, they may have had a true addiction. There are people who have, especially who are sales-oriented, buying and sales addictions. Literally, they get a high from pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and trying to run up things. And, it turns into a Ponzi scheme very quick because they're so big about the mission, they're so big into the concept that they lose sight of the details. They don't delegate. They don't know. They're so big into the control of the power and the, hey, we're going to push forward, push forward, push forward. They don't take care of the small details as well, or at least know when to delegate those responsibilities. And that's not acceptable. And anybody who is in that position or who's in that position where they're thinking about doing something like this absolutely needs to make sure that their contractual structuring is one that allows for people to get out when there is something wrong, and or allows for everyone to have a participation rate where each stage is consensual, where what you're contributing to is only locked in or put out once the commitment's been shown, once, the paperwork has been shown and the actual, legal whatever documents have been shown that you actually have the property, have the rights that they're claiming to have. And I am concerned because these kinds of things, if they do keep going or come closer to home, because I think this is more of an international thing. The Gulch Chile thing, that doesn't exactly cover a lot of, I think, American interests and even other foreign national, like European interests, as heavily as other types of business events or conventions or products. I think this definitely had a smaller niche market of people who wanted to, start this kind of plot, but it's still significant enough that this needs to be brought to attention and heavily weighed for anybody who is considering doing a proposal like this or something similar. As small as publishing a book to as big as creating a massive development for a community. It's just very important that anyone who decides to put themselves out there with the liberty tag and also is doing business, that they're going to have that higher standard of ethics, even beyond the bare minimums of the non-aggression principle of voluntarism, because these actions have long-lasting effects for people. They have very long-lasting effects in terms of people's credibility and their willingness to lend an ear and say, hey, these people are honest. These are the kind of people who I want to listen to. And it's not that defeats or makes or breaks the ethical underpinnings, the statements. It's just the opportunity for people to listen, the willingness for people to even open up their minds and their hearts to thinking about a better way of interacting with others, a better way of ethical thinking. That should not be turned off because of the fraud or the lies of people that maybe have either a serious disorder or who are just trying to create a Ponzi scheme, or who are just got in over their heads and their pride didn't let them open up about it. So this is for me just a really big deal, a really big encouragement to others that if you're having problems or if there's anything going on or issues start to arise and when you're trying to do a business, you need to be frank about that and you need to get help and seek out resources. And you also need to structure your business model in a way that has integrity from start to finish. You need to structure whatever it is you're doing, whether it's Indiegogo, Kickstarter, or you're doing a bid proposal, or you're trying to do a pre-sale on a book. It needs to be a project that has integrity with realistic expectations and outcomes. The goals need to be thought about. The means to those goals need to be thought about. And the process for dealing with issues along the way also needs to be thought about. So I hope that everyone here checks that out, thinks about it, thinks if they're going to do something, what types of integrity checks they would have for themselves, because I think everybody should use this and any other experience, where you have trouble in the market, as a learning opportunity, as an opportunity to grow and do better. Because as I said, I don't know for sure the exact details. All I can do is glean from what everybody has written about it, and I've seen the websites. I followed the project for a while, but not very personally, where I was like, oh yeah, let me go to the conference and do a pre-sale, investigation, because I'm not moving there. But it's something that is kind of scary. It's not really good. It's not really good to have that negative air there, especially if you're going to call it Galt's Gulch after John Galt and Ayn Rand. Not that Randianism is what voluntarism is, but rather the concept of liberty and the concept of individualism and self-ownership. Those are kind of tied into the whole concept. It'd be really bad if there was a Ponzi scheme called Rothbard Circle. That would be bad. You don't want anything like that happening. All right, so thanks for listening up, everyone, and I hope you're doing well. Take care.